ASMR witch. Thank you for joining me for another ASMR true crime video. It is a really gloomy, rainy, wet day here in Western Massachusetts today, and it felt right to kind of sit down and film an extra creepy. I mean, all the true crime cases are creepy and scary and terrifying and awful, but this one particularly left me kind of queasy, and that's not easy to do. So every time, guys, every time I sit down to start recording, it's like my nose just instantly is like, itch me here, itch me there, and I'm like, I don't understand. Nose, what are you doing? But yeah, so you might hear a little bit of tippy tapping. My phone is leaned up right next to the window, and it is raining right behind it, so hopefully you find it relaxing. The traffic might be a little bit louder than normal due to the rain, but hopefully you find it soothing and relaxing. Okay. I definitely recommend getting cozy, getting relaxed, curling up with a nice fluffy blanket, or your cat or favorite pet. This one is going to be a tingly one, and a creepy one. It's gonna be really creepy, guys. Really creepy. Really creepy. Okay. Get comfortable. And let me give you tingles. Okay. Today we are going to talk about Katherine Mary Knight. Katherine Mary Knight was the first number one, the first, number one, not two, one, not three, not two, one, the first Australian woman to be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. If you see me looking down, my notes are right here to keep me on track, just to keep me on track. This case has a lot of information. Katherine Mary Knight was convicted for the murder of her partner, John Charles Thomas Price. Her crimes were that of murder, dismemberment, 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 and cannibalism, 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 cannibalism. A little bit of background on Miss Katherine Knight before we get into the crime that is her ultimate undoing and incredibly, incredibly chilling and creepy and spooky. Katherine was unfortunately born into a really traumatic, dysfunctional, abusive family. This is usually a recurring theme with people that are serial killers or murderers or unstable. Family life is always a bit wonky for them. And this was the case for Katherine Knight. Not always, mind you, but Katherine's mother, Barbara, was in a marriage, happily, with 4 boys, 4 young sons, when she met Katherine's father, Ken Knight, who was a single man, no children yet at the time. This affair that they were having caused Barbara's current marriage and her children, her 4 sons, to split. So her ex-husband, Jack Ruffin, took 2 of their sons, and then 2 other sons went to Sydney, 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney, 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney, 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney, 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney. Just kidding. Finding Nemo reference, not appropriate in this case. But yes, the 2 sons went to live with an aunt in Sydney, Australia. This scandal, of course, caused a lot of rumors in their small town of Aberdeen, and Barbara and Ken moved to another town called Moree. M-O-R-E-E. Barbara had 4 additional children with Ken Knight, including a pair of twins, where Katherine Knight was the youngest. So Katherine was born October 24th, 1955, a Scorpio. Not hating on Scorpios, I just remember finding it interesting. I was like, oh, she's a Scorpio, shit. Ken Knight was an alcoholic who openly used violence, rape, and intimidation on his wife, Barbara. And Barbara had, I think she had some sort of mental illness or some underlying thing that was going on with her, because she spoke very openly and appropriately to her daughters about her relationship with their father, including like speaking about sex and just things that are like very inappropriate and that a mother should not be talking to like 9-year-old daughters about. So this behavior gave Katherine particularly, gave Katherine particularly a very skewed, very, very dysfunctional view of love, sex, relationships, and marriage. She actually had told her daughter Katherine, Barbara had told Katherine once, when Katherine came to her having problems with a boyfriend who wanted to be intimate or wanted to engage in some sort of sexual act, Barbara was like, deal with it, lady. Like, just deal with it, just shut up and let it happen. But on the same note, she spoke with her children about how much she hated men, how much she hated them, despised them, and that she hated sex. And so, like, she was pressured into being, you know, this very submissive person, but was very openly a dominant, aggressive woman who fucking hated the shit that was happening to her and spoke about this with her children. So, very confusing. Very, very dramatic to grow up in, I imagine, for Katherine. Katherine was frequently abused sexually, physically by multiple members of the family. family. I'm sure her mother as well. But I didn't find any sources that said her father took part in any of this abuse. But so yeah, Katherine, at the age of 15, left school to work full-time in a clothing factory, and then a year later found her dream job. Katherine's dream job was working in a slaughterhouse. She was thrilled. She moved up in the company very quickly. She was given her own beautiful set of butcher knives, which she cherished and loved, and they were prized possessions. She even kept them with her more often than not on her person at all times or near her. In fact, hanging them in her bedroom until the day she was like incarcerated or something for her crimes. She had them with her always. Butchery was her thing. It was her life. It made her happy. Huge precursor to what's gonna happen later. Foreshadowing as fuck. Foreshadowing. So Katherine became close with a coworker, David Stanford Kellett, in 1973. They married in 1974, and from all these sources that I could find online, this was very pushed by Katherine. She was very much the alpha and dominating person in all of her relationships, and she really wanted to marry David. She was pushing for this relationship, and he kind of just went along with it. Katherine had a bit of a reputation locally for being very unstable. She used to fight with everybody in public, physically, verbally. She would scream at people. She was very outspoken, kind of like gained this name for herself as like the local crazy person, for lack of a better word, which is awful. But yeah, she had exhibited strange behaviors, and she was increasingly violent to her husband. And when their daughter was born in 1976, she was hospitalized for postpartum depression after she was seen being very, very violent with her newborn daughter. I believe it was a daughter. Then, after her hospital stay, she had placed her newborn daughter on live train tracks and went into town with an axe, threatening to harm several people. A local railway worker found the baby minutes before a train came through, which is incredible, and she was arrested and returned to the hospital to seek further treatment. But she checked herself out the next day. Now, I'm not familiar with, mind you, this is the 70s. This is a different, place in the world. I don't know exactly how their mental health laws work or how their healthcare is really. I'm not well versed in that, but yeah, it just seems like, and this is something you'll notice as I'm going through the case, like, she should have absolutely received more help sooner rather than later. So a few days after this incident, she captured a woman. I couldn't find who the woman was. She held a woman hostage and demanded that the woman take her to her husband. Now, Mr. Kellett kind of had peaced out. I'm not sure if he went to stay somewhere else, but he kind of left Katherine, for lack of a better word, and she was not having it at all. He had a new girlfriend. He was spending time with his mother. He was kind of staying away from her because he knew something was very, very wrong. So Katherine was like, nope, let's go. And I don't know if she had a way to drive to him or didn't know where he went. I'm not sure entirely what happened here, but she held a woman hostage to get to her husband, and then when they stopped at a local service station, the woman escaped and she held a little boy hostage at the service station. So the police showed up, and David heard about what was happening, how Katherine was kind of being incredibly unstable. So he left his girlfriend, and he and his mother became her sole caregivers, and she was released into their care. So she clearly was like mentally not okay. Guys, I'm so sorry. Every time it just itches. So she was released into their care, and they returned to Aberdeen, which is the town that actually Barbara was from, Katherine's mother. So she went to Aberdeen, returned to them in their care, and they moved to Brisbane, like a suburb in Brisbane, in Woodridge. She found another job in butchery nearby in Ipswich, but then I also found a source that said that she went back to her original job working at a butchery, but this sounds like she kind of had a career switch for a moment during this move. And during this move, she gave birth to another daughter, so they reconciled. I'm not sure. And then shortly after this, she had received disability for a back injury. She received housing accommodation, help from the government, and this is kind of where Mr. Kellett leaves the picture. I couldn't really find much about what had happened or did not happen. But yeah, after this, Katherine had a slew of very, very violent, tumultuous relationships, and I, encourage that you take a look into this case. Like, there is so much of it. As I was doing research, I was like, whew, like, she has a track record that is miles long for being violent, unstable, abusive, so I'm going to kind of take that chunk out because it's a lot. Although, like I said, I totally encourage look into this case. Take a look at all the things that she went through and that she did to other people. But I'm going to jump ahead to when Katherine met John Price, who is the man that she was convicted of murdering, dismembering, and eating. Yeah, okay. Katherine Knight had met John Price, who, he was married, he had children, and at this time, I believe she was single, but they had an affair. He was an all-around good guy. He was really well liked, especially by his coworkers and friends. He was well aware of Katherine's past. I'm not sure if he heard rumors or how exactly he knew about it. Maybe she openly disclosed this about herself, but he knew about it, and he was like, that's okay, like, everything's fine, like, she's good. But right away, she became incredibly violent towards him and unstable once again. But at first, like, she was the picture perfect image of womanhood and health, and his children adored her. But that quickly changed. She stabbed Price in the chest on one occasion, and he received a restraining order against her, which did not last long because after a couple of months, he let Katherine back into his life. Katherine has a slew of this happening to her. Multiple relationships and multiple men had taken out restraining orders against her, had felt she was dangerous dangerous, unsafe, unstable, were scared of her. So Bryce had told one of his coworkers one afternoon that if for some reason he did not arrive to work that day, it would be because Katherine had killed him. And he had expressed to his coworkers that he was increasingly concerned about his children's safety and his safety, and he was really scared. His coworkers pleaded with him, like, don't go home, like, we'll figure something out. But he's like, no, I'll take care of it, it's fine. And yeah, things were just very disconcerting in that home, and John did not know what to do, and he wanted to make it work. She had become, like I said, she stabbed him. She'd become increasingly violent. She'd become violent and very, sexual in nature towards his children. I could not find exactly what that meant, but there were multiple articles that stated that she was making, sexual advances to his children. Did she molest them? Was she? I'm not positive, but there was some sort of sexual abuse happening, and things were just not okay. Not okay at all. And becoming very scary. At 6 a.m. on March 1st, I believe this was, of course, I did not write the year down, but I believe this was 1996. I'm going to leave a comment or leave it in the description box below just to verify that timeline. But I'm pretty sure it's 96 or 97. On March 1st, a neighbor became concerned when they noticed his car still in the driveway. He would have long left for work by now. So his coworkers as well were concerned, and remembering what he had said, they all went to his house, and the neighbors and the coworkers were tapping on the door, knocking on glass, looking through windows, and one of the individuals doing this noticed blood smeared on the door, and immediately they called local authorities. Now, this is incredibly graphic and frightening and stomach-churning. Just forewarning you what I'm about to kind of explain. There is a full police report online that you can read of what investigators found when they entered the home. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but it's graphic, and like I said, it's kind of stomach-churning. I think that one thing that I'm really spooked out about, as you guys know at this point, I love horror movies, I love true crime, and I love true crime, learning and forensic science, and I find it all fascinating, but something that just really gets me feeling some type of way, and not a good way, about horror movies or true crime cases is butchering people and eating people and cannibal, like Jeffrey Dahmer stuff, just that terrifies me a bit. So yeah, huge trigger warning right now. Okay. The police broke down the doors and found Katherine comatose from ingesting a ton of sleeping pills. And in the home, John Bryce's dismembered, skinless body was found. She had stabbed Bryce some point in his sleep the night before, or maybe even a few days before. And judging by all of the blood everywhere and some of the blood smeared outside, investigators concluded that John had put up one hell of a fight trying to get away from Katherine. Terrifying. The autopsy revealed that Bryce's body had been stabbed 37 times in the front and about 37 times in the back. Then and she cooked parts of his body and served them with baked potato, pumpkin, zucchini, squash. And for dinner that evening, I presume, or maybe she just woke the children up and fed them, I'm not sure, but she served him to his children. That's fucking terrifying. Okay. In October 2001, Katherine Knight pleaded guilty, sparing the Price family a very, very traumatic, long, lengthy trial. And what I find incredibly interesting about this case is that, from the sources I found, she was deemed perfectly sane when committing these crimes. I don't know if I can agree with that. I clearly think that she has complete insanity. I would think this has been following her whole life. This has been her whole life. A slew of all of these really, and also when she was interviewed about what happened with John, and she recalls blacking out or not knowing, and that's like a huge part of psychosis, and a lot of psychotic people and unstable people kind of like separate that from themselves, and I just find that incredibly strange that like they were like, she's fine, she's picture perfect health. Clearly she's not. And I think that like there should have been some interventions for her a long time ago. Again, this is, this was the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. I don't know. I just don't know. Now I wanted to kind of bring up an article really quick that I found interesting. Sorry if you hear my clicking. But I found this article. It was published in, of course I can't find it. I can't find the date it was published. Why can't I find that? But when I searched up, here it is, July 22nd, 2017. It's from news.com.au. So it's like an Australian news site. And it talks about cannibal killer Katherine Knight in prison, where she is Queen Bee Supreme, and it kind of talks about her life now in prison, and she's kind of running the show there. She's the head honcho. All the girls look up to her and confide in her in the prison, and there's also some like photos of what an Australian prison looks like, and it's so different from what the westernized ideal of, or at least maybe not westernized, but like American prison system looks like. It's very different. It almost looks like more of a like their kitchen looks like the kitchen, like my kitchen. Like it looks very homey and relaxed, and there's plants. So I found it interesting that they like included those pictures, because I'd honestly never seen what an Australian prison system has looked like. So yeah, you can see a woman, I'm looking at her right now, she's preparing a meal at the Silverwater Women's Prison where Katherine Knight is. Katherine Knight, by the way, is strictly prohibited to go anywhere near a kitchen, be anywhere near knives, anywhere near any types of dangerous materials. I guess she's kind of one of the inmates that like everybody knows to keep an eye on and watch her, because like nobody trusts her. But the inmates trust her. She is queen. She is head honcho in the prison system, and it's a really interesting article. One of the interviewers, I guess, had met her. He went into her room, and it was very, very cluttered. She'd been there for a very, very long time. She crochets a lot, and so he, had said that she's an incredible artist. She never signs anything she does because she doesn't want to make money. She doesn't sign her art in prison because she's such a big deal over there that when she dies, she doesn't want anyone to get a hold of this and sell her paintings, probably John Wayne Gacy or something type of thing. She is allowed to sell them, however, to raise money for charity and the jail, but it cannot have her signature. It's a very, very interesting. The thought of someone hanging her art on their wall because she is a killer repulses her. She doesn't want some sick person to buy her art because they think what she did was cool. Okay, so at least she has some remorse. Very interesting article. I'm gonna put it below so you guys can check it out yourself. Again, there's so much about this case. I remember looking it up a bunch of times and reading it and going to different sources and looking at videos, and I was maybe this isn't real. Do you ever think read something and you're okay, you can't believe everything on the internet, maybe this didn't happen. This is bizarre case to me. Bizarre case. The fact that she dismembered her husband and fed him to his children, not their children, not her children, his children. I'm holy shit. It's very, very wild. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna put a link in the description box below. I'm still going through and reading this article because I'm she is the prison's event planner as well. Whoa, yeah. I'm definitely going to pop this below so you guys can take a look at it and let me know what you think, and let me know if you know. Like I said, there was so much information, there was so much misinformation, and it was I had to weed through rumors and stuff that didn't matter, or stuff that was just lengthy, and trying to get to the root of really what happened with the Price murder. And I'm not even entirely convinced that I got all the information with that, but I will link below the links that I found with the police reports and everything as well for you guys to kind of look at yourself. This is probably my longest video, and I'm sorry, question mark, but kind of not, because this is really good. If you want an ASMR video, you kind of want it to be longer, at least I would think so. You're welcome. What can I say? Okay, so I'm gonna kind of wrap it up, a little bit, and 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 a little bit. I really appreciate you guys being here, loving the content. I know that ASMR true crime is not for everybody, but I am grateful for all of you freaks that are enjoying it like me. I love true crime ASMR so much, and I just love learning about cases like this. I'm telling everybody, I'm at work and I'm did you ever hear about this lady that chopped up her husband and fed him to his children? What the fuck? And my coworkers are okay, Kaylee. But it's learning about forensic sciences and learning about the psyche and there's a specific case that you're like, I want to know more, or I would just love to hear about this, like, let me know. Especially, I have a theme going where it's like female serial killers, female based crimes, because I'm, just a feminist, fucking fascinated by female serial killers. What do you want? What do you want from me? Okay, guys, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop rambling. I'm gonna stop rambling right now. Thank you again. Thank you again. Thank you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Please comment below. Please tell your friends, tell your grandma about the ASMR, ASMR witch. And find me on Instagram. It's up there. Click it. I'm gonna burp. No, I'm not. Okay. I love you guys. I love you. And I will see you very soon. Very